Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. We decided something. We're not even going to tell you his fucking story, so deal with it. We're gonna call it the entrepreneur, Mr. Wes Knight, and we're gonna dive into stuff that they don't talk about, which is lessons that we're not even calling them lessons. We'll just call them haymakers. I call them haymakers that we've learned over the years. So, Mr. Knight, I'll let you kick it off, my brother.
Well, appreciate you, Austin, having me. Feeling like my journey is interesting, at least enough to talk to me about it. I have this belief that the 20 to 30 minute podcast and just like straight unadulterated, I hate value. I think it's overused, but like impactful lessons that you can impart, like those to me are the most nutrient podcasts. So, man, I don't know what it is that your group will take from my story, but we've got lots of, lessons that I've learned along the way, and I'd love to impart and have some fun doing this. So thanks for having me on the show, man.
So I think the best place to start is, if you had to boil it down, what's the lesson that you would really like to have told yourself before you started the businesses?
Okay, so I retired from a professional athlete in soccer in 2015, and I started coaching directly after that. As an athlete, I never understood, or had to, for that matter, take care of my day-to-day, I call it now my book of business. So being able to map out exactly what I needed to accomplish on a day-to-day process, working towards whatever the goal is that I wanted to accomplish. What I was accustomed to were coaches doing that for me, with physiotherapists doing that for me, team managers doing that for me. All I was accustomed to at that time was showing up and performing wherever they told me to perform and wearing whatever they told me to wear. So what I would tell myself back in that time was to focus the first year of my entrepreneurial venture, spending time devoting myself around another entrepreneur who was already modeling a high level of performance and organization and detail focus. And I would have humbled myself and spent that year working with them and for them, learning those things, instead of beating my head against the wall, Austin, trying to figure out how to channel my ADHD and stay focused and create frameworks that allowed me to know what I was doing day to day and trying to do it all on my own. I would have gotten a mentor and added value to that mentor's business and learned for a year as an apprentice first. That's what I would have done if I could do it over again. But along the way, you can't take some of the lessons that I have gotten and the beautiful knowledge that I have now, having sort of a new level of mastery around myself, right? Being able to understand the way my mind works, understand how to sharpen my focus, understand how to ebb and flow out of, thinking in the business and on the business. Those are things that you learn through your entrepreneurial venture that you can't necessarily learn through watching someone else do it. So there's good and bad, but to those of you who are listening to this podcast and feel like, you're early in your entrepreneurial venture and you feel like having some structure that could be provided for you by someone who's doing it at a higher level, there's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur for a short season and working to develop yourself underneath somebody for a short term. Absolutely.
I love that. So much knowledge there. One of the best things I ever did for myself, even though it took me 6 months to get him to agree to it, is I followed a guy around who was doing 450 transactions a year with no marketing, and was doing 12 flips at the same time, had 3 kids. And it wasn't until I spent the morning with him at the gym, all day with him and then had dinner with him. And my mind, I couldn't wrap my mind around how he could do all that. And watching him interact with his team, his wife, his kids, changed my entire life. Like spitting. Yeah.
High level, just people's capacity to be able to compartmentalize, right? So that's what I think is so good about the highest level performers on the planet. You know, LeBron James, there's a reason they call him fourth quarter LeBron, because he compartmentalizes the moment, and he harnesses this deep level of focus that he has sharpened and developed over years and years and years of playing in high pressure moments. And he goes to a different place and he compartmentalizes each segment of the game, right? So he plays LeBron, playoff LeBron, unfortunately we don't get to see him this year. Playoff LeBron in the first quarter is facilitating. Playoff LeBron for the other players. Playoff LeBron in the second quarter is beginning to get himself involved. Playoff LeBron in the third quarter is starting to take over. And then playoff LeBron in the fourth quarter is putting the entire game on his back. And each one of those moments or those versions of himself are compartmentalized from the other. And so when you look at high level entrepreneurs, could you imagine following Jeff Bezos around on a day-to-day to see, I almost wonder if we would be bored at this point to where he is now, because he has such a team and an organization to insulate him against all of the minutia. Jeff might not have much to do on a day-to-day, right? But if you boil it down to the guy like you were mentioning, or the mentor that I worked around, and how they had 6, 7, 8 businesses that they were ebbing and flowing out of. And then when it was time to put the dad hat on, they were able to throw that on, and the husband hat, and, just watching people's capacity and their bandwidth and their performance inside of each of those areas of their life. That shit is what is the real juice. That's the real sauce. And I can see why that got you excited.
Yeah. And I love to study Rob Dyrdek. He's like my dude. Like, that guy is optimized to a T. He's a beast. I love it. So here's a question. As a multiple business owner and somebody who started entrepreneurship, what was easier than you thought it was going to be before you started it? All
right. This is going to be a little bit sideways. And I say this because this is a general strength that I have. And I don't have very many strengths, but this is a strength that I necessarily encompass. And I have an ability to attract people to what it is that we're doing, whether it be partnerships, whether it be people that work with us, whether it be capital partners, people with money, because I'm in real estate. We did a deal last week with Corey LaJoie, NASCAR race car driver, right? I've worked in this real estate business with people who are connected high level, number 5 at Lending Tree, right? I have an ability to attract, a certain type of human naturally to work with us, to partner with us, to join us in what we do, than I think other people do. So what I imagined when I was getting started in this business, what felt so hard was to have a business that other people wanted to come and be a part of in some degree. What I imagined is it would be so much harder to attract that high level person that could put $1 million down on an investment for a 12% return, not stress at all about 7 figures being, they're involved in your business and never check in, but think it's absolutely cool that they get to do real estate with you because they know nothing about real estate, but trust that we're going to take care of them and their money. I thought it was going to be harder to attract that type of individual avatar. But what I realized is that's sort of something that comes natural to me that doesn't come natural to other people. What I think is harder, than they talk about is staying passionate about the same business for a sustained amount of time. As an entrepreneur, and you see new opportunity, you see new windows, you see new alliances, how do you build infrastructure to protect foundational businesses that got you to the place that you are now, as to not disrupt them or destroy them upon your, I call it micro exit, right? So like, I'm in a season, and it sounds like you're well beyond this, but I'm in a season of my entrepreneurial journey of learning how to hire, building out personnel, identifying strengths and characteristics and goals in those individuals, and trying to build a seat or put them in a seat or build a seat for them that aligns with their strengths, their gifts, their interests, right? And also benefits the business, right? In the overall, organization. So, the harder part is building a business and getting really excited about it, and then growing beyond that business, but trying to figure out how to nourish that business, that the foundational businesses, as to them not dying when your energy or your essence begins to move somewhere else, right? So that's harder than I thought it was going to be.
Well, because ultimately, micro-X get amazing. Stealing that was amazing. But what's interesting is that you are the spark that created the business, and then when your spark is removed or elevated out of it, how does the spark continue? And what I've realized, and by the way, we're in the exact same spot, so please, I'm literally in the midst of all this, just brought on new people.
Awesome.
I understand that as my role, and this is something a client actually told me yesterday. He said, sometimes you can be so gifted at something that you don't even understand how great you are until people point it out in you. And then so you just do that thing naturally. But I realized that my actual role has nothing to do with facilitating business. It's supporting the people that are supporting me and growing them into who they need to be. And then you become the ultimate fucking leader that can move mountains. That's the game.
It's about using the ember that started the business to be the ember that keeps their pilot light alive and their excitement for the business alive, and constantly checks in with them, right? Like, I'm growing also in this space now where, hey, I got to check in with guys and talk nothing about business, right? Like, I sat on the tailgate of two of my guys today at a project, and we didn't talk about business at all. And I could feel myself, the CEO Wes, like, oh, we need to talk about these deals. Like, we're wasting time. And then the other more evolved version of me that's trying to come into my personality type now, right? It's like, no, let's just sit here and connect and ask good questions and see what's going on in their world outside of this, so that they genuinely know that I care, and that obviously performance is important, because doing a great job at anything you do is the highest form of contribution. But we also need to know that the heart space is there. They also need to know that I care.
Dude, I had a business partner come to me. about a year and a half in, and he said, "Hey man, I love you to death." But he said, at the pace that you run, if we all run that way, in 3 years, you're going to have nobody around you. You're going to be building a single business. And he said, I love you, but understand that what the pace that you run at is like nothing nobody's ever seen. And so you have to understand where we need to run, cut us off at that. They call me the mare, the wild horse. They let me run out in the field, get dirty all day, run all my energy out. And then I come back with a plan. It's like, we have to understand as leaders that the vision that we're seeing, what I love about life, and I think is the number one quality, and I would venture to guess if I was in your meetings, it would be the same for you. Nobody that has ever come to work for me has ever asked me what they're getting paid.
Wow, that's powerful. That's supremely powerful. That's supremely powerful, because you've created such an essence and an energy about culture, that what they care about is that the job that you're providing them with is something that they get excited about, and they know that you're going to trust their efforts along the way. That's huge.
Taylor Welch, I was watching a video, and he said they hired on 20 people. They fired. He's like, on the third one, they were like, whoa, hold on. Maybe this isn't the people, maybe it's us. And he said, as a CEO, I didn't need to learn how to train them. I needed to learn how to react properly when they made a mistake.
Great. I can kudos to that. We had a mistake that was made last week, and I overreacted to the mistake because in the moment that mistake was huge to me. And in reacting and not responding, I damaged a little bit of the trust with the partner that made the mistake. And I quickly, upon gathering, I've got a 7-day-old daughter, 9-day-old daughter now, and, stepping away from the business to focus on being with her and my wife, I quickly recognized the overreaction. And so just learning and developing and growing on how to say you're sorry after an irresponsible response, right? And lean back into building that trust and to create or recreate the connection. I mean, these are parts of leadership that people really don't talk about,
Mm-hmm. What is the skill that you wish you would have focused on more as you're building a business when you started?
I call it the multi-layer veil. All right. So I believe there's an essence, and there's a book called 48 Laws of Power. I dance back and forth about how I feel about the book. I think there's a lot of dark arts that are talked about in that book. I think there are some helpful components about it, but we have to recognize that the reality of the world that we live in is driven by money. That's just a reality. It moves everything. And there are multiple sides of how you interpret money, i.e. power, right? And there are healthy ways, in my opinion, to interpret power and other healthier ways and not so healthy ways. The multi-layer veil of business for me is about creating infrastructure in front of you as to, especially in sales, not allow the individual that you're negotiating with to ever know who they're negotiating with, right? So having people in our sales program that are the first level layer of fence, having, to the decision, then they bring the problem or the scenario or the circumstance upstream to the leadership group. And then the leadership group is able to communicate across the situation and then to find sort of a equitable decision to go back down to, let's call it the seller or the other side of the transaction. So I believe very heavily in building that multi-layer veil and allowing people to speak on your behalf initially, but training them well enough to understand that we strategically need to talk through everything that's happening in the moments so that we make a good, concise, strategic, smart decision for the basis of the business. Whereas what we find is a lot of these business owners, when they get in negotiations, they are so emotional, they are so reactive, they don't step back and create time and a pause between sides of negotiations that a lot of times they lose. And I think that over this is something to be said when you try to get a hold of a CEO and you got to go through multi-layers of steps to get a hold of this person. There's a level of mystique and power and a mirage around this essence of the CEO that you want to get in touch with. And the goal of being able to put that infrastructure in place, especially in sales, is to give yourself time to think strategically amongst negotiations, right? So look at what Elon Musk is doing right now, going back and forth with Twitter. I'm not sure if you're connected to what Elon is doing right now, but originally came in at 9%. And then, all of the board at Twitter, if you own more than 14.9% of Twitter, then the board is no longer effective at not disallowing you to make decisions. And they're putting in this poison pill clause where they're trying to keep Elon out to where if he is effectively going to buy more shares and own majority, that these advisors get a chance to buy at a discounted rate and then sell to Elon at an increased rate. But Elon is negotiating this entire deal on Twitter, right? For everyone to see, to expose the whole scenario. Meanwhile, Elon is not even talking to anybody. He's talking on Twitter about Twitter and negotiating the deal by hedging the community by which Twitter is using. So like he's already controlling Twitter and he doesn't even own it, right? So you talk about this multi-layered veil approach to business. It is the essence of really creating a qualified team that is connected, working together for a singular purpose to win, right, against whatever it is that is the opposition. So, that's the issue that solopreneurs have, in my opinion, is they are stuck in wearing every hat. I think the earlier you can begin to put people around you to insulate you as the main decision maker and to trust their feedback and opinions when you come back and collectively think on problems and give everyone an opportunity to share their opinions, and you take their opinions and you try to mold, a greater decision. Boy, that's something that I wish I'd have focused on way, way, way earlier in my time as an entrepreneur.
Dude, guys, if y'all are not listening to this is the conversation that I've been wanting forever, because this is such a high level conversation because I'm so sick, and I mean sick. I could throw up in my mouth about everybody reading every goddamn fucking real estate book, every fucking, podcast. This is what you need, guys. I'm going to give you the fucking clues to the world. Study leadership, study communication, learn how, what the greatest compliment I ever got as a coach, ever. And it was from Mr. Mason, Corey Mason. He said, when I hired you, he goes, I thought you were going to teach me what to think, but you gave me a gift for the rest of my life because you taught me how to think.
Wow. That's
and
cool.
when you can teach people how to think in the way that you're talking about right now, you can, the product, the situation, the business, the asset does not fucking matter.
Doesn't.
And that's why it doesn't even matter what we're selling, because we're so in tune with our values, the mission that we're doing. And that's when it gets exciting. That's when the whole play field opens up and we can just execute. My joke is, if you and I decided that we were going to start a dance studio, I best fucking believe that'd be the best damn dance studio you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. So here, I'm going to leave you with one last question. This is going to be an interesting one. I think that somebody asked me the other day, who's my hero? And I said, myself in 10 years.
Ooh.
What advice would you give to your 10 years from now, your future self?
What advice would I get or give?
Give.
What advice would my now self give to my future self? All right, let's go there. You ready for this?
Yeah.
So daughter was born on, depending on when this airs, my daughter, for reference, was born on April the 10th. And so it is now April the 19th. So she is 9 days old. And during that time, I had a lot of time to get away and think about what I feel, to my knowledge, to my level of expanded consciousness right now, right? Wherever it is on the spectrum, try to start to reorient me to what's valuable, right? Because it took me a while to create my first 7-figure business. We did that last year, right? And that took me 5 years to figure it out. And then it was the right industry in real estate versus, a lot of variables that came together and aligned with the experience to get me into the right vehicle in real estate and to know what to do. So it's no longer like this pinnacle of success, this plaque to get the $1 million business, because, okay, I've done that right now, right? So I understand what it's like to gross and net a 7-figure, right? What I've really started to think about is, this desire I have inside of me that desires to be known, right? That desires to matter, to be relevant, right? It's this innate human tendency that I think most leaders, most A-type personalities struggle with, right? And as becoming a father, I now am looking at other business owners from a completely different lens, right? So I'm looking at guys who actually build multi-site seven-figure businesses, but have found a way to remove themselves from as much of the businesses as possible, to where what they do is surrounded around the experiences and the quality of life with their family. And like, I become deep. I don't know if you can reach and desire to become a larger than life or a well-known figure in this world without sacrificing becoming deeply connected with your family. I don't know that it's possible for you to expend the energy it takes to expand and to help a lot of people in this world. I don't know if at the same time you can take that energy and that effort that it requires for you to go there and also at the same time be able to understand more deeply the relationship with your wife and be willing to do the work with your partner when shit gets hard, and to be connected to your kids on a deeper level, to want to be the one that takes them to the practices and sits and watches them practice, and wants to be the one that sits down with them and with no phone tries to get an understanding as to who they are and what their personality is like, and then try to map a reality that you have where your kids' personality traits and their interests is like at the forefront. Like, so with all that being said, it's like this used to be this desire inside of me, this rich nutrient desire to matter and to be known. And I am going through a shift in my perspective where, what if that 10-year self never wrote a book, never built a huge YouTube following, never, spent time speaking on stage? And what if he just like was kind of known in his area, in his community? He worked hard. He loved on his family. He was a great dad, a great husband, did some, not-for-profit work, didn't want things to be really about him. And he went the opposite direction, right? So I've never held that vision of myself 10 years from now if he decides to go the opposite directions of what he always thought he wanted, right? So I'm carrying this new meditation around, what would it be like if I just didn't do what I thought I wanted to do this whole time? And would it be okay if I just was really strong at business, but also really strong at being a dad and really present when I was there, and made vacations for my family based on what they love, and going to see things around the world and taking them to these experiences to show them life, and focus my energy and effort toward my family instead of toward like all these other people who at the end of the day, dude, they were not going to be at your funeral. They're not going to be there when shit gets hard, right? So my advice to that 10-year self, and I should put a reminder in Siri in the iCloud to remind me on this day 10 years from now, is just like, it's okay to matter to a few, to matter a lot to a few, than to matter a little to a lot, if that makes sense. So just something that I've been contemplating on here over the course of the last 9 days. Is very fresh. I think both of them are awesome, right? I think it's just, you got to choose your awesome. That's it.
I want to flip this table up. I want to run out of this RV because the last 5 minutes was the most transparent, realist fucking shit I've ever heard. Because everybody that I talk to, I'm talking about guys that are worth 30 million, said they wake up every day. Half the time they want to build an empire. Half the time they want to buy 1,000 acres and disappear. That's the fight.
And go away. Yep. And go away.
And so choose your awesome.
Choose your awesome. What a great name of a podcast. Choose your awesome.
That's the fucking shirt. I see the branding. Choose your awesome. Like, dude, I can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
I feel better for this conversation. Guys, that last 5 minutes, just rewind and listen to that. I'm sending this to Corey Mason like right after we get done with this, because I know it's what he's been worried about. He's been getting quiet. He's been working on his business, working on his family, being there for his kids. I do believe that you can have both. I've seen it in some of my mentors, but they still have to make choices. And so here's what I said to myself the other day. We're out here in Nashville. We have a kayak. I haven't got in the kayak because it's been cold. It was finally good weather. Every time I step foot in that kayak and I get on the lake, the word that comes to mind is simple. We don't need a lot to be happy, but I still want it all. But knowing it's my choice gives me the ultimate power.
Great. That's great. So simplicity, man. You know, this would be the last thing I leave with people. And choosing your awesome helps get you to reflect on what matters. Because esoterically, none of this matters. None of it, right? The harsh reality is like when you die, very quickly, you're going to be forgotten. And regardless of how good you were in basketball, like tell me who was the 1958 NFL MVP. In 58, he was the best National Football League athlete. And in 58 and in 2022, you nor I could say his name right off the top of our lips. So being able to choose your awesome also begs you to have to sit down and think about what awesome is to you. And the more we can have, especially men, I'm sure there are men and women here in this, I'm speaking generally, but in the cases of men, being able to sit down and understand themselves and then be willing to take action against doing what you say you want to do and doing less of what you say you don't want to do, and having the courage to change things when they're not in alignment with where you want to go. I mean, that's the ultimate power, just like you said. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for allowing me, Austin, to come onto the show and chat with you. And if anybody would like to connect with me and just chat, whether it's real estate, life, or anything else, you can give me a shout on Instagram at Wesley T Knight, Knight. Shoot me a DM. Let me know you heard the pod, and would love to connect with you guys.
Love it. Guys, I'm headed over to the Smokies in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to drive down to Charlotte. And me and Wes and my boy Chris, we might throw a little meetup, a little impromptu meetup at Wes's office.
Let's do it, man. Let's make it happen.
Dude, I appreciate it, guys. Choose your fucking awesome. That was amazing. I'm going to go back and listen to this. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate it. Guys, if you enjoyed this, share it with your friends. Send it to somebody that gets some value, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.